These 5 pillars of Immanuel Kant will make old age happy. As people grow older, life often becomes quieter. Attention fades. Roles change. The world moves on. What troubles many is not aging itself, but the feeling of losing control over identity, relevance, and self-worth. Western culture teaches us to tie value to productivity and visibility. When those fade, peace can fade with them. Immanuel Kant offered a different answer. He believed dignity does not come from how others see us, but from inner freedom and independence of mind. From this view, a happy old age is not something we are given. It is something we build, slowly, by releasing what no longer serves us and strengthening what remains within. The 5 pillars that follow are not rules, but principles for protecting peace as life enters its later chapters. The first and perhaps most important principle is learning to free yourself from other people's opinions. When people are young, approval feels essential. It helps them find direction. It helps them survive socially and professionally. But as time passes, this same need for approval often becomes a burden. Older adults can become painfully aware of how much of their emotional state still depends on how others respond to them. A comment that goes unanswered. A phone call that doesn't come. A feeling of being overlooked or dismissed. These things hurt not because they are dramatic, but because they quietly suggest that one's value is fading. Kant believed that allowing others to define your worth is a form of dependence. And dependence, to him, was the opposite of freedom. If your peace relies on being noticed, praised, or respected by others, then your emotional state is always in someone else's hands. And those hands are rarely steady. As people age, society naturally shifts its attention elsewhere. This is not cruelty. It is simply how cultures function. The mistake is believing that attention equals worth. When someone equates being seen with being valuable, aging will always feel like loss. But when worth is grounded internally, attention becomes optional rather than necessary. There is a quiet strength in reaching a stage of life where approval no longer dictates how you feel about yourself. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means recognizing that other people's opinions are unstable, temporary, and often more about their own fears than about you. Praise fades. Criticism fades. Trends move on. But your relationship with yourself remains. Many older adults discover that the moment they stop trying to be impressive, something else appears. Relief. A sense of lightness. Emotional space. When you no longer need to perform, explain, or justify who you are, daily life becomes calmer. Conversations become easier. Silence becomes less threatening. And peace becomes more accessible. This freedom is not arrogance. It is not withdrawal. It is maturity. It is the understanding that your value is not negotiable, not dependent on applause, and not diminished by invisibility. When you stop seeking validation, you reclaim emotional energy that can be used for reflection, enjoyment, and presence. From this freedom grows the second principle, the ability to be alone without feeling lonely. Loneliness is one of the greatest fears associated with aging. But loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the feeling of being emotionally abandoned. Solitude is simply being with oneself. The difference lies not in the number of people around you, but in the quality of your inner relationship. Kant viewed comfort with solitude as a sign of inner development. A person who cannot tolerate being alone often struggles not with isolation, but with themselves. Silence becomes uncomfortable when the mind has nowhere peaceful to rest. Aging, however, naturally brings more quiet, fewer demands, more empty space. And this can feel frightening if one has never learned how to inhabit that space. But solitude does not need to be empty. It can be grounding. It can be restorative. It can be a place where the mind slows down and the constant need for stimulation finally relaxes. Many people spend their lives surrounded by noise, conversation, and activity, yet feel deeply lonely. Others spend time alone and feel completely at ease. The difference is not circumstance. It is inner readiness. As people grow older, relationships change. Friends pass away. Children build their own lives. Social circles shrink. This is often unavoidable. The question is not how to prevent it, but how to respond to it. When solitude is treated as failure, it becomes painful. When it is treated as a natural stage of life, it becomes manageable. And when it is embraced, it can even become meaningful. Learning to be alone without feeling lonely means becoming a companion to yourself. It means being able to sit quietly without immediately reaching for distraction. It means allowing thoughts to come and go without panic. It means finding small, grounding rituals that make the day feel complete, even without external interaction. This does not require becoming isolated or rejecting connection. Human beings still need others. But when connection becomes a preference rather than a necessity, it changes its emotional tone. Conversations become more genuine. Relationships feel less desperate. You no longer reach out to fill a void, but to share presence. Many older adults discover that once they stop fearing solitude, loneliness loses much of its power. The silence that once felt heavy becomes calm. Time slows down in a way that feels gentle rather than empty. And the mind, no longer constantly stimulated, begins to settle. This inner settling is important because it prepares the ground for the deeper work that follows. Freedom from opinions and comfort with solitude create space. Space for honesty. Space for reflection. Space to live in alignment with oneself rather than against oneself. Without this space, the later years of life can feel crowded by regret, resentment, and unprocessed emotion. Aging well is not about adding more to life. It is often about subtracting what no longer serves peace. Approval seeking, noise, constant comparison, fear of silence. As these fall away, something quieter but more stable begins to emerge. A sense of internal steadiness. A feeling of being at home within oneself. This is not a dramatic transformation. It happens gradually, through small choices. Through letting certain expectations dissolve. Through realizing that many of the pressures once taken seriously no longer deserve authority. And through allowing life to become simpler without interpreting simplicity as loss. By freeing yourself from the need for other people's approval and by learning to be alone without fear, you lay the foundation for a different kind of happiness. Not excitement. Not constant pleasure. But something more durable. A calm that does not depend on circumstances. A dignity that does not require witnesses. From here, the journey continues inward. Toward fidelity to oneself. Toward structure and order. Toward acceptance that is not bitter, but peaceful. These are not ideas for withdrawing from life, but for inhabiting it more honestly. And they begin exactly where you are now, with the quiet realization that peace is not given by the world. It is claimed from within. From this inner calm, something important becomes possible. Once the noise quiets and the pressure to perform fades, a person can finally ask a more honest question. Not what others expect of me and not what I should appear to be, but who have I actually been and who do I still want to be? This leads us to the next principle, one that quietly shapes whether old age feels peaceful or filled with regret. Fidelity to yourself is not about stubbornness or ego. It is about integrity. Over a lifetime, most people compromise more than they realize. They say yes when they mean no. They follow paths chosen more out of fear than conviction. They silence parts of themselves to keep peace, earn approval, or survive professionally. While these compromises may be understandable, they leave traces. And those traces often surface later in life as dissatisfaction or quiet sorrow. Kant believed that dignity comes from acting in a way you can respect. Not in a way that wins admiration, but in a way that allows you to live with yourself. When people betray their own values repeatedly, something erodes inside. It may not be obvious at first. Life keeps moving. Responsibilities demand attention. But eventually, often in later years, the question appears. Did I live my life, or did I live the life that felt safest to maintain? Fidelity to yourself does not mean rewriting the past or judging it harshly. It means acknowledging it honestly. It means recognizing where you acted in alignment with your principles, and where you didn't. And more importantly, it means choosing now to live in a way that feels internally coherent. Even late in life, this choice matters. Perhaps especially then. Many older adults believe it is too late to change how they live. But fidelity to yourself does not require dramatic transformation. It can begin with small acts of honesty, speaking more directly, setting boundaries, allowing yourself to enjoy what you enjoy without justification, letting go of roles you no longer believe in. These changes may seem modest, but they restore something essential: self-respect. When you act in ways that align with your values, regret loses much of its power. The past no longer feels like a list of failures, but a complex story that led you here. Peace grows not because life was perfect, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself in the present. Aging then becomes less about what was lost, and more about what remains intact inside. This inner alignment also makes it easier to forgive yourself. No life is free of mistakes. But when you know that you are now living truthfully, the weight of those mistakes softens. Fidelity to yourself is not about purity. It is about consistency. About being able to say, even quietly, that your actions still reflect who you believe yourself to be. From this sense of integrity arises the need for something that may seem surprising: structure. Many people assume that freedom, especially in old age, means the absence of rules, schedules, or discipline. But Kant understood something that modern life often forgets. Inner freedom requires outer order. As people age, days can begin to blur. Without work obligations or external demands, time loses its shape. While this may feel liberating at first, it can slowly erode a sense of purpose. The mind benefits from rhythm, from knowing what comes next, from having simple, predictable anchors in the day. Order does not mean rigidity. It does not mean filling every hour. It means creating a framework that supports mental stability. A regular waking time, a morning ritual, a daily walk, time set aside for reading, reflection, or simple tasks. These routines may seem ordinary, but they quietly protect against drift. Kant believed that discipline was not the enemy of freedom, but its foundation. When life becomes completely unstructured, motivation fades. The mind begins to wander aimlessly. Small anxieties grow larger. Days feel empty not because they lack meaning, but because they lack form. Older adults who maintain simple routines often report feeling more grounded. Their days feel complete, even if little happens. There is comfort in repetition. Familiar actions reduce cognitive strain. The nervous system relaxes when it knows what to expect. Structure becomes a form of self-care. This is especially important as external unpredictability increases. Health issues, plus changing social dynamics. When the outer world feels uncertain, inner order becomes stabilizing. You may not control everything that happens, but you can control how your day unfolds. That sense of agency, however small, preserves dignity. Order also creates space for enjoyment. When the basics are taken care of through routine, mental energy is freed for appreciation. A conversation, a meal, a moment of quiet. Without structure, these moments are often overshadowed by restlessness or boredom. With structure, they stand out more clearly. And then there is the final principle, perhaps the most difficult and the most liberating of all. Accepting aging happily. Aging is often framed as something to resist. Entire industries exist to slow it down, hide it, or deny it. While caring for one's health is wise, fighting the reality of aging at an emotional level creates tension. The mind becomes locked in comparison. Who I was versus who I am. What I could do versus what I can do now. This constant measuring breeds dissatisfaction. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It does not mean losing interest in life. It means acknowledging reality without resentment. Kant believed that rational acceptance of what cannot be changed was a sign of wisdom. Fighting time does not stop it. It only exhausts the mind. Accepting aging happily means releasing the need to compete with younger versions of yourself. It means allowing your identity to evolve. Strength may become wisdom. Speed may become discernment. Social visibility may become inner clarity. When these shifts are embraced rather than resisted, aging feels less like loss and more like transformation. Happiness in old age does not come from pretending to be young. It comes from fully inhabiting the stage of life you are in. There is a quiet freedom in no longer chasing every opportunity. in choosing carefully where to invest energy, in valuing depth over breadth. Many people discover that once they stop arguing with time, peace increases. The mind becomes less restless. Gratitude becomes more accessible. Attention shifts from what is missing to what remains. This shift does not eliminate sadness or grief, but it prevents bitterness. And bitterness is what truly poisons later years. Accepting aging happily also means making peace with limits. Energy is finite. Time is finite. This awareness, rather than being depressing, can sharpen appreciation. Moments feel more precious. Relationships feel more sincere. Life, stripped of excess ambition, often feels more real. When you combine freedom from other people's opinions, comfort with solitude, fidelity to yourself, daily structure, and joyful acceptance of aging, something remarkable happens. Old age becomes less about decline and more about refinement. The noise falls away. What remains is quieter, but also truer. A happy old age is not defined by constant pleasure or excitement. It is defined by inner steadiness. By being able to wake up without dread. By being able to sit with yourself without discomfort. By knowing that your worth does not depend on performance, and that your life, as it is enough. Kant's philosophy does not promise ease, but it offers dignity. And dignity, more than happiness, is what sustains peace over time. When dignity is intact, happiness no longer feels fragile. It becomes something simple, durable, and deeply human. Old age, then, is not a closing chapter to be endured. It can be a quiet summit, a place where clarity replaces urgency, where inner freedom replaces striving, and where life, finally, is lived without needing permission to be at peace.